Hey, deserving listeners, it's time for episode 6, in which I follow Darcey on the show 90 Day Fiancé. I am a couples therapist, and I am reacting to what I'm going to see. I'm going to react to what I'm going to see, so let's see what happens.
That's beautiful. Look at that.
Isn't that amazing?
You're going to post them on your Facebook?
I'll post that for you.
Which pictures do you think you're going to post? Since I don't really get to see your social media since I'm not really on there.
I don't really feel like talking about social media, if you don't mind.
The situation is just so, it's so cringy. And again, maybe you're getting tired of me saying this, but there's another way to talk about this. The attachment bids and injuries that are happening. For Darcey, it's okay to say, so I just want to let you know that it would make me feel loved if you were to announce to the world that you were committed to me and my kids. Now, you don't have to post a picture on the internet about, with us, but I don't know, it would just mean a lot to me. I'm just throwing it out there. And it's also okay for Jesse to say something like, so I wish that you would kind of respect my boundaries around social media, because if I feel like you're invading my space right now, and it kind of hurts my feelings that you don't just ask me nicely. It seems like you're putting pressure on me to post something on the internet, and that scares me because I wonder, like, are you really so concerned with that it dominates how you feel about how I feel about you? Because that isn't a good indication of how I love you. I deal with social media in my way. I think it's different the way you do. None of these kinds of conversations are happening. She's saying, hey, could you post that picture on the internet? He's saying, I don't want to talk about social media. These are some of the indications of what John Gottman found. Stonewalling was one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse to a relationship. When they studied couples, they found that there were a number of behaviors that they coded for, and then later on, those couples were more likely to have divorced or broken up. And one of the behaviors, if one or both of the people in the couple exhibited what they called stonewalling behavior, and that's what Jesse just did. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. So let's see if he can kind of loosen up a little bit, because there's nothing wrong with him drawing a boundary, but there is a deleterious effect by stonewalling.
We come to a new understanding.
Can't handle it.
Yes, I can.
No, you
Why
can't.
are you speaking for me? Jesse feels I shouldn't be on social media because I posted something on Facebook, really pissed him off. He just hasn't gotten over it. So I kind of stayed off. But I love social media. I shouldn't feel like I need to stay off of it. I just feel like I should be able to not fear going back on because, you're not going to be happy about it.
Hey, honey, if you want to go on social media, go ahead.
Go ahead, keep talking for me. Keep talking for me.
Do your thing.
I'm just tired of getting bullied.
So it's just over and over and over again with the same pattern, which, of course, why would they be any different? Neither of these individuals are in therapy. They're not in couples therapy. And it's expected that these things would just get worse and worse. I don't know. For some reason, I just think like someone would give them good advice, or a producer would help them. But of course, the producers want them to fight. So it's just a very repetitive, disappointing fight that these two have. He takes this sarcastic approach of, go on social media, I don't care. And then she says, don't talk for me. And it's just the same old between the two of them. If either one of them were to get in touch with what's going on for them underneath the bravado and the aggression, then it would potentially invite the other person to do the same. Neither of them are doing that, and it escalates every single time. So I have no doubt this is just going to, become a big problem. And if I was either one of these people, I would be pretty hurt and alone. So it's sad to see. Makes me sad.
I'm like, make a choice, Darcey. You are very sensitive and insecure. Isn't it better for you to just focus on yourself instead of using a platform that causes a lot of tension and stress?
So I'm guessing a lot of people who don't like Jesse out there would accuse him of the exact same thing. They might say, Jesse, you are sensitive and you don't deal with things very well. Maybe Darcey too, but everything you're saying about Darcey is true about you. It's pretty clear to me watching this that Jesse is sensitive about her going on social media, and he has a problem with it. And he has a hard time taking responsibilities for his feelings. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with asking someone, could you tone down the social media a bit? Because when you do this and this and this, it affects me in this negatively emotional way. He's not doing that. He's just saying, you can't go on social media anymore because you're not good enough for social media, because you are a insecure person who all these insults, rather than taking responsibility for his own feelings. It's in line with all the previous 5 episodes that I've done about this couple, pointing towards a defense mechanism that he has regarding needing to have a veil of superiority, a veil of, I don't have any problems, it's always someone else, because beneath that veil, that fantasy that everyone can see through, in all likelihood, I have no idea, is a vast sea of total worthlessness that he's trying to protect from. That's when you watch him and you're just like, why is he such a jerk? Why does he do that? Well, when people do strange things, it's usually because of a good reason that made sense in the past. I obviously can't know that about either one of these people. As I always say in these videos, I have no idea if what's being presented to us is actually them. The producers are editing. They know the cameras are there. So all that I'm trying to do for you out there is, for you lay people, I'm trying to help you understand these things so you can start to make your lives better. And also for you clinicians out there, that maybe this will stimulate some thought for your own clients around attachment theory and personality, projective identification, and so on. Also, as I always say, these sorts of videos shouldn't be confused for clinical treatment, and you deserve to have your own therapist. Many of you do have a therapist, and I encourage you to be in therapy to talk about these things, because watching a video isn't a replacement for that kind of service. But anyway, as a couples therapist that works, this is totally fixable for me. I have couples like this. This is a walk in the park. I've worked with couples much worse than this. If you can believe it, much worse than this. This sort of couple, I have total confidence and optimism about us being able to find a solution, and within the session, a half an hour in, the two of them being able to understand each other, or 6 months in, where they get into a routine, a different sort of routine of owning their feelings and expressing them, giving the other person a chance to take care of them, all those kinds of things. What I see are two very vulnerable people who have likely had a lot of relational traumas in their early childhood, and they're just completely defended. And both of them want to have love and have a connection, and they're just stuck in their own distortions. And I'm guessing for them, they're just like, they don't see any way out of it, which is just so common. The couples that come to me, this is what they'll say. They'll just be like, we've tried everything. And I'm like, no, you haven't. You haven't tried couples therapy before. And the world just opens up to these couples. They're just like, oh, so I can do that? Oh, that. Now we have this new thing. We have all these other options. It's a wonderful thing to actually sit down with a couples therapist that knows what they're doing. In your area, it's highly likely that there is an excellent group of couples therapists who you can go to for help with this. Even if you're looking for individual therapy, you can go to a relational therapist, a psychodynamic EFT kind of emotionally focused therapist that will know all the things that I'm talking about. Anyway, let's continue to watch this train wreck, I guess.
I have nothing to say to you, buddy.
Yeah.
I just want to enjoy the Angelo's pizza.
Cool.
That's the only thing that's not bull right now.
And just then the waitress arrives. Hi, guys, I have your pizza. So that's classic stonewalling that John Gottman talked about, that him and his research team found in the lab. They would see couples that would exhibit this kind of pattern. They would see one person just shut it down, just like, I'm not looking at you, we're not talking about this anymore. And that was highly predictive of, within a few years, I can't remember the time span, of the marriage dissolving. So Not a good sign. Not a good sign. Now, when I work with couples, I don't say, don't stonewall. What I say is, okay, you're stonewalling, which doesn't bode well. Sometimes I'll explain John Gottman to people just so they understand. I'll give them a book to read on John Gottman. Actually, if you're out there and you want to learn more about John Gottman and his books, you can find a lot of used copies on Amazon for like 1 penny. And some of his most prominent books are widely available to you and are written for the layperson. So I don't say, hey, don't stonewall. What I say is, you're stonewalling. That's not going to help. Let's get underneath why you're stonewalling. What's happening there for you? Well, I just don't see any point in having this conversation anymore. I don't see where this is going. Okay, so you're frustrated. What happened that led you to that conclusion that there was no point? Well, she said this, she said that, and then we can start to get in the micro interactions and messaging that's happening in the micro hurts and fears that are being triggered and attachment injuries that are happening for people. And you got to get your hands dirty on that as a couples therapist anyway.
Yes, apologies for the shouting.
Sorry about that. I'm doing everything I can to please him. He always says he doesn't want the drama, but I feel like he continues to shut me down. It's frustrating.
I think I've talked about this before. The hypothesis that I would have if someone presented this sort of story or behavior in my office would be that due to her relational traumas, she doesn't feel very worthwhile herself. Someone made her feel very worthless growing up chronically over time. And in the face of what a lot of us would look at and say, why would you hang out with a person like that? Even if they were just an acquaintance, you would bounce from a situation like that. Why would you want to date and marry and spend the rest of your life with someone like that? When you have been told over and over and over again in your life that you're worthless, you have a disconnect between your ability to evaluate a situation like that and the way you feel about it. Meaning that early in life, when you're treated like a worthless human being, sometimes it's easier if you just kind of cut yourself off from that editor of like, is this situation good for me or not? Because early in life, to ask such questions was futile. So you just sort of don't ask that question. And a lot of therapy with people that present behavior like this involves getting them in touch with that part of their soul, their heart, that says, I don't deserve this. And from the outside, again, we can look at her and just be like, how come you can't see that you don't deserve this kind of treatment? And it can be very frustrating to people. It's like, well, she must just be doing this because of the fame, or there's some other, you're just putting up with this because he's a beautiful younger person, or whatever it is that people say. I don't know what people are saying, but there's a possibility, again, I can't know about Darcey, but there's a possibility that there's no connection between the observer of the world, i.e. Jesse, and how the world is impacting her. So the world is impacting her heart and her emotional center, and she's observing the world, and the two aren't really connecting up with each other. And that takes time. It's much easier said than done. I've worked with people like this for 5-10 years, and they've only kind of gotten a connection between those two centers of their psyche. Because when you lose touch with that connection at age 2, 3, and 4, it becomes harder for the brain to alter that. The brain is plastic throughout our life, but it's less plastic as we're older, as opposed to when we're 2, 3, and 4. So that's just another hypothesis. I don't know if that's true for Darcey, but that's something that could be going on.
Bon appetit.
Go post right now, baby.
Nah,
Make a picture.
it's okay.
Post
You'll
it
just get
on
mad at me
your
once
Facebook.
again.
Start acting your age, and
I
if you
do.
can't, start restructuring yourself.
Wow. Start acting your age. Wow. Do people watch this show for this kind of stuff? It's hard to watch. This is hard to watch. I mean, it's awful. This is awful. Do you watch this out there? What happens to you when you watch it? I'm guessing what happens when people watch this is they just hate this guy more and more and more. Like when I watched Game of Thrones and Joffrey Baratheon, I just hated him more and more and more as I was reading the books, because I'm a hipster and I read the books way before the show came out. But Is that why this? Because it's such a train wreck. I mean, I said like 5 moments ago that, okay, this is just going to get worse because they've been down this road so many times. But then they have all these sweet moments together too. It's mind-boggling. And such a tragedy. If I was there, I'd be like, whoa, slow down.
Your
I
thoughts
do.
and your behavior.
Absolutely
because
do.
it's
I think
immature.
you should do the same
okay?
thing. Take your own advice.
I'm done talking to you. I wanna
That
enjoy
doesn't add up to
New
me.
York. I am done with you.
Okay, bye.
I mean, did we think it was going to end any other way? It's either she leaves or he leaves. That's the result of every single interaction that these two have. It's really tragic.
I'm a strong woman, and if I say my piece or defend myself, he doesn't like it. So he talks louder and bigger and then stomps off.
What's going on with you right now?
Nothing. I'm just done. If you want to keep bull, fine, but not with me.
I'm done.
So these people sign up for these shows, so presumably they know what they're getting into. But when I see moments like this, I do feel bad for the people because they seem to be saying, I don't want to be filmed right now. And to just think everyone out there, I've never been on a reality TV show. I'm guessing most of you haven't either. Imagine, just think back to like some of the worst relationship moments of your life, the biggest fight you ever had. Imagine that you had all these producers and film crew people and lights and sound, and then it's posted on the internet for literally the entire world to see. I would want to crawl into a hole. I mean, I guess they went through this all in season 1, and they probably had to sign up again for season 2. So what attracts people to be on shows like this? Is the fame that attractive? Is the prospect of maybe it working? Because obviously they could have worked out their relationship without going on the show. So why would they get back on the show? I just feel bad for them. I feel like a voyeur watching a very horrific moment, a very private moment in someone's life, in two people's lives.
Just don't know why, like, this whole topic needs to keep coming back up. To me, it was done. We already talked about it, and he should know that. I have a big vision, and I want him to be a part of that so bad. But I want him to want it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's another element to perhaps why someone would put up with a relationship that seemed very difficult and troubled. We all kind of meet that why in the road of like, okay, do I leave this person or do I stay? If I leave this person, I don't have to deal with their shit anymore. But also, if I leave, I'm going to be alone. And what's the chance I'm going to meet anyone on that road of unknown? There's a big dark fog heading into that fog. I don't know if I'm going to meet anyone. Maybe I'll be completely alone. Maybe I should try to give this another try. I guess I'm saying this for people out there who have friends or family members who are in relationships that you have decided that are troubled, and you are boggled as to why they stay in that relationship. Well, one of the factors could be is that dilemma. Okay, if I leave, I don't have to deal with their crap anymore. But also if I leave, I might be alone. And if you feel worthless on the inside, you might believe, well, no one's going to love me. This is the only person in the world who I think will ever really love me. Now, that might not be a conscious thought, but it might be an unconscious thought based on the way we're treated growing up. That could really lock people in to a relationship where you're like, why are you still together?
Sad, like I had a lovely day, so all I just wanted is for you to be real with me, because that's what I fell in love with. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Be real with you? What does that mean exactly? Again, it's blaming her for the whole thing. It's making her feel like you are the piece of crap that started the fight. You're the piece of crap that continued the fight, and I'm perfect, and there's nothing wrong with me. There's something deeply wrong with you, and you better shape up, or else this relationship is over. I have no culpability in any of the things that happened. It's a very unfortunate way to look at life. And I'm guessing that there's a lot of people out there that have either experienced people like Jesse before, or it's hard to relate to someone like him. I've worked with a lot of people like him, and I can tell you that they are very sad individuals, meaning that they experience a lot of sadness, and they're in a constant state of trying to suppress it. It's tempting, I think, for society to look at people like him and say, like, oh, he has to be brought down a few pegs. He has it all. He has the looks and the youth and women falling all over him and da-da-da-da. I don't know if people are saying this, but I've seen this sort of reaction to people like him. And having treated, and I specialize to some extent in treating people like him, I can tell you that they are suffering a great deal. The reason why they do these kinds of things is because they're suffering so severely. The suffering is so vast and so pervasive through their personality that they have to uphold this, they have to force their relationships into a scenario where they feel superior, where they feel like, okay, look what she did over there. I can point to those things and say, she is a piece of crap, and so it distracts me from this overwhelming, loudspeaker going off in my soul saying that I am a piece of crap. But for right now, she's the piece of crap, and I don't have to hear that voice saying I'm the piece of crap. Now, I know some people out there will reach out to me sometimes and say, well, Kirk, you keep saying that narcissistic people or people who are like this, we should have compassion for them. We should understand why they are the way that they are. But these people are despicable human beings. They abuse people. I don't understand why you're promoting the notion that we should forgive them. I don't understand why people actually make that leap. So let me try to just clear that up. I'm a therapist, not only clinically, but also I think just philosophically. I have compassion for everyone. I have a conceptualization, if I have enough data, for everyone. Anyone, if you give me enough time with them in my office, I will be able to come up with a conceptualization that will probably not be their fault. It will probably be some historical thing that happened to them that produced the personality traits and the defensive structure that led to the behaviors that we see today. Having a conceptualization is the backbone of treatment. As a therapist, I can't look at someone like this and go like, oh, what a piece of crap. Treatment depends on a good relationship. Treatment depends on unconditional positive regard. Unconditional positive regard from me. This is a foundational aspect of good outcomes in therapy. This means that I can't just fake that I like someone. I have to actually, in my heart, like someone. Now, I could not like their behavior, and I have with many clients in the past. I have disliked their behavior, but I could like them as a human being. And in order for me to like them as a human being, I have to have a sympathetic conceptualization of why they got to where they're at. And so not only clinically is that important, but I also think that that's important philosophically. If we're really going to understand people, we have to understand them. And also, it's easier to not take their behavior personally. To be involved with someone like Jesse and not have a conceptualization, it's easy to be like, oh, I must be bad because look at the way he's treating me. But if you understand these sorts of personalities, you say, oh, no matter what I do, people with this issue will make it so that I am a bad person on a 10,000 degree scale. So it has nothing to do with me. This has to do with his past and his defensive structure that he developed in his past. So that's conceptualization, that's treatment, that is philosophical approach to human beings that I have adopted. That is completely different from what one should put up with and allow to happen as abuse and mistreatment happens from people like this. You can have compassion, you can have conceptualization of them, and at the same time, like me, say, I am not going to put up with that crap. So as a client, I will get involved, I will get my hands dirty with clients like this, and they might treat me badly sometimes. But I'm at work, I'm getting paid. In my personal life, I have no patience for people like this. Zero. how I was raised in a way that made me value myself and draw boundaries with other people. And I have engineered my life for, I'm 49 years old. 49 years of my life has been spent keeping people like this away from me personally. And I could rattle off the top of my head a dozen people that I have been involved with like this. I conceptualized them and I said, oh, no. There is only one thing that's going to happen if I stay close to this person. I'm going to feel like crap all the time. And I'm a therapist. I treat people like this. And there's no way to defend yourself emotionally, psychically from people like this. And now, there's different strategies besides just kicking them out of your life. There's other things you can do. But so out there, when I conceptualize people like this, I'm not saying you should put up with it. If you have someone in your life that is treating you badly for whatever reason, you have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to establish safety. You have the right to have no mistreatment in your life. Now, it's easier said than done sometimes, but I don't want anyone to confuse what I'm saying with forgiveness, with tolerance, with allowance of mistreatment. I am absolutely not saying that. And if you were to ask me personally, I have this person that's mistreating me, and from what I understand from your lectures, I think this person might suffer from narcissism. And you seem to have this conceptualization that it's because of their difficult past that they have this narcissism. I don't want to reject them because I'll be yet another person that's going to reject them. I don't want to add to the relational traumas that they had, but I also feel this constant set of mistreatment and abuse from this person. What do? The first thing I'm going to say is you have every right to not be mistreated. That's the bottom line. You're not responsible for saving someone else's traumas when they're the one traumatizing you. So I hope everyone understands that. Maybe I cleared up some confusion already. I don't know. Anyway. And as always, I can't say that Jesse suffers from narcissism. There's just no way for me to know that. All I'm doing, one of the things I was thinking about before I press record was when I talk about the characters on these TV shows, it's almost like I'm diagnosing Luke Skywalker or something, because the producers are showing us they're sort of manipulating things behind the scenes. Maybe the editor is editing certain scenes. The people are trying to play up a certain side of themselves for the TV cameras. It's unsure, and we're not really there. I don't have a chance to ask them what's going on in their head. I don't have a chance to really hear from them what their experience is like. So when I talk about these people, just understand that I in no way believe that I have a bead on their personality. As I always say, the reason why I do this is because I'm trying to make the world a better place. I'm not trying to attack these people. What I'm trying to do is show an example for you so that you can enhance and better your life. You can have better, closer relationships, lower conflict, get your needs met, know your needs, attend to other people's needs. Almost everyone I know can benefit from improving in that area, and that's the only reason why I'm doing this, honestly. Also, just a few other things. I always have to take notes. Subscribe and hit the bell below, because I've been told I'm supposed to say that. Also, comment below. We always love your comments. Be nice to each other. Don't be mean. There's no reason to be mean. Remember what your kindergarten teacher told you, to be nice. Also, share the video. I've been told I'm supposed to ask you to do that. Also, become a patron of the podcast on patreon.com. Also, you should know that I have over 1,100 episodes or something. You might have watched maybe a handful of my YouTube videos. I have over 1,000 episodes of this podcast that goes back 12 years that is available on your phone. So if you go to a podcast app and you like Apple Podcasts and you go for Psychology in Seattle and you subscribe to the podcast, you can listen to our audio version, which is completely different from these reaction videos. Anyway, let's continue watching this train wreck. But this is interesting. So we're seeing right now she's starting to cry, and it looks like he's starting to feel bad. So there's two things I'll say. One is that this is emblematic of the abuse cycle that a lot of intimate partner violence folks will be able to identify, where you abuse, you break someone down, you hurt them, then the victim will try to defend themselves, but eventually they just kind of give up because the abuser breaks them down so much. Then there's a cycle in the recovery period where the perpetrator will apologize and will be nice and suck the victim back in, and then the cycle just happens all over again. I'm not saying that's happening here, but there are yellow flags, red flags for that. Another thing I'll say is that when you have relational traumas that make you depend on a defensive structure of a veil of grandiosity that covers up your vast sea of worthlessness, which people who exhibit Jesse's behavior sometimes have, you need to be superior at all times. You need that supply, as they call it, to feed that notion that you are better than everyone else because of that early life experience that made you depend on yourself and not other people because of the way you're being treated. And when she starts to cry, now he doesn't have to fight with her. She's already kind of decompensating as she's crying, and he can still be superior in this moment by taking care of her. So by her crying, it provides a different mode of superiority for him to still uphold the superior notion. Now, the flip side that I've talked about before is that for Darcey, hypothesis, she suffers from worthlessness that she actually she notices a lot. And that by falling into that worthlessness and crying and being demoralized and having him take care of her, this might actually kind of solidify the two of them of like, okay, when I'm worthless and I cry and he takes care of me and he's sweet, then we're both kind of getting our needs met. Both people are kind of getting their needs met in a good way that provides closeness. And then this cycle just happens over and over and over again where they can't actually relate to each other because it's hard to be vulnerable because of their early experiences. And so they have to involve themselves in this kind of cycle to have any kind of closeness because it has to be within their defensive structure. I hope that makes sense to people. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just talking to my students who they have the benefit of having heard hours and hours of my lectures. So sometimes I wonder if I'm speaking over people's heads. So I apologize if I'm doing that. There's also a chance that I'm making no sense to anyone, and it's only making sense in my head. So I don't know. Comment below if I'm making sense.
I love you so much, Darcey. You have no clue. I don't want any of this drama.
So if we take his word for it, which I'm guessing some of you wouldn't, the part of this that is often overlooked, and I said this before, but it's worth repeating, is that everyone, including people who exhibit Jesse's profile, are deeply in need of human closeness and attachment, security. Even though he comes across like everything's fine, he developed that defense of coming across like everything's fine because when he was 2, 3, and 4, there's a possibility. Well, what I'll say is people who have this behavior, it's sometimes found when I assess them that when they were 2, 3, and 4, they had to adopt a very blank presentation that gives the impression that everything's fine because they learned if they signal their upsettedness, no one will come to their rescue. So you can avoid any kind of rejection from other people by just not signaling that you're upset. So there's a chance that he is a roiling, emotional human being, but you just don't see it because, again, there's some people who have this profile who develop that defense. It sometimes makes it look like people like this are psychopaths, meaning that they don't have emotions. I obviously don't know with him, but I'm just saying that I've treated a lot of people like him and found that they did have a lot of feelings underneath what seemed to be this veil of strength.
Just want love. That's all I want. Please, I beg you.
Why do you think I love you so much?
So you just want to tell Jesse, just apologize. Please, for the love of God, just say you're sorry. Just say the words. Just say, I'm sorry. Even if you don't know what you're saying, just give that grace. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened at dinner. I don't know if it was my fault. I don't know if it was your fault. I'm confused. I'm sorry that happened. But even when he's trying to be sweet, he uses this language where he's still subtly putting her down. He said to her, I love you so much, you don't understand how much I love you. Like in lieu of everything else he's saying, it's still yet another message of you're an idiot. and then this sort of vibe that he has with her right here of, this questioning, like he's the professor and she's the student. It's all in line with this very firm defense that needs to be upheld to cover something up.
Because it's very rare what we have. It's once in a lifetime. I love you for you, Darcey.
I'm feeling confused and not quite sure where he wants this relationship to go.
I don't want to fight, but is this just superficial making up, or is there actually being something solved? The question really is Darcey able to fix herself for it to be a relationship that is long-lasting and workable?
There it is again. He's commenting on, okay, we have troubles. The question is she going to solve it? It's like, wow. I'm sure all of you viewers are like, what? Her? What about you? Come on. So it's easy to yell at the TV screen and to villainize people like him. Again, if I was involved with someone like this, I would run for the hills. I'm here to tell you, I would. When I run into people like this, I will very quickly go, okay, I'm not going to take it personally, and I need to figure out a way to manage you, because if I get close to you, then it's going to hurt me and it's going to scare me. Jesse just has a very, very consistent defensive structure that's really, really quite obvious. Again, I can't diagnose him, but what's being presented to us is a presentation of someone who has a very rigid structure. Whether or not he actually has a rigid structure or not, we wouldn't know because we don't have the opportunity to talk with him.
Here, I'm just gonna push over here because you keep elbowing me.
I'm not.
I'm sorry. I was
why
just
are you lying?
I'm not, but you're kind of like
Why
King
I'm
Nash.
not?
I'll just go over here.
I am just sitting here
I know.
stretching, babe. Oh, there's something with you.
Oh, jeez, you're so rude.
No, that's just the reality.
So this is one of the other horsemen of the apocalypse, as John Gottman identified in his research, him and his team at the University of Washington here in Seattle. It's my it's where I went to school. It's my alum. I'm an alumnus of anyway. So I'm proud of University of Washington. And one of the four horsemen is contempt. And we see it exhibited here, in which Jesse is, he's kind of stretching around and she says, oh, I think I'm going to move over here because you keep jabbing me in the side. One, from the outside, from my viewing, I would say that Darcey was a slightly bit mean, but certainly not horrible. He was hurt by that, probably, but instead of exhibiting that hurt and expressing that hurt, oh, that kind of hurts my feelings that you moved away from me. Or, oh, I'm sorry, I feel guilty for having elbowed you. Instead of exhibiting those feelings, which I'm guessing are happening underneath the surface and he has a hard time acknowledging them or expressing them, he gets angry and he says, it's always something with you. So that's contempt. It's whenever you hear people say things like always and never, you never listen to me. You're always late. These kinds of statements are indicative, not always, but usually of contempt. And the contempt is something that was built before they said it. A number of negative events and ways of seeing it for the individual has built this ball of contempt that when anything reminds them of that contempt, it tends to sneak out of their mouth. So it's not like he just developed that contempt. In all likelihood, it's been building for a long time. And John Gottman found that when people exhibit contempt, then that doesn't bode well for the length of their relationship. Now, when I have clients that have contempt, I note it in my mind. It's like, oh, they have one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse of this relationship. On the horizon, one of the 4 horsemen has arrived. I don't say, don't do that. What I say is, okay, well, actually what I'll say is, it kind of sounds like you have some contempt in there. Tell me more about that. And then we can kind of identify that ball of contempt. How did that develop over time? There's usually a logical reason, not a reason that everyone can relate to, but a reason that has some logic to it. And then we can start to kind of break that down, maybe apologies or explanations, or I might even talk with him about the way he narrativizes his life, instead of seeing it as the two of them sometimes not understanding each other's attachment bids, which is one narrative. He might have a narrative of there's always something wrong with her. It's always something, she's always nagging me, or she's always creating some kind of problem. And so this is just more of that defensive. So if I was to break down, if I had a client like this, I might hypothesize I would test it out collaboratively with the client. And I might go over it like this. I might say, okay, so let's talk about that fight that happened in the car on the way to the office. Okay, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, when she moved away from you on the couch, what was happening for you emotionally at that moment? He might say, well, nothing. It's just like it's always something with her. I'd be like, okay, but what was the emotion you were feeling when she moved away from you? Well, I don't think I was feeling any emotion, because a lot of people on the avoidant attachment style side of things will be cut off from their emotions because they had to, because of the mistreatment they went through growing up. So it might take some time, but eventually we might get to a place where they can say, well, I don't know, I guess it sort of hurt my feelings that she moved away from me. And she accused me of jabbing her in the side with my elbow when I feel like I just kind of moved my elbow a little bit. Oh, okay. So you were hurt. Your feelings were hurt. Well, yeah, I guess so. Okay, that's great. And I would spend a lot of time as a therapist cultivating what they just did, which is a monumental, vulnerable leap for people like this to say. And then I would say, okay, so that was what was going on for you emotionally. Well, what did you do with those emotions? Well, I don't know. And then she might raise her hand and say, I know what he did with the emotions. He told me that there's always something wrong with me. That's what he did with his emotions. Oh, okay. So you felt this, she moved away from you. That provoked these feelings, which are totally fine. There's nothing wrong with being hurt. There's nothing wrong with feeling accused of jabbing people. That's okay. You can have those feelings, totally normal. And then because, why couldn't you express those vulnerable emotions? I'm guessing because you don't trust people to hear you, that you don't trust people to care. And instead, because you didn't trust people to care, you decided to try to communicate those feelings through put-downs and through contemptuous messaging. My guess is you were trying to get her to stop hurting your feelings by saying things like, it's always something with you. But there's more effective ways of trying to get people to not hurt your feelings anymore, right? And we would, so I'm oversimplifying things, but that's essentially the way things go. And it could take months, if not years, of these repetitive exercises that I do with clients before they can get to a place where they actually really get it and really change and can invoke these practices in the moment. But man, is it worth it? Man, is it worth it? It's a wonderful thing when people progress in that way, and it's very gratifying to me as a couples therapist.
Here, I'm just going to push over here because you keep elbowing me.
I'm not.
I'm sorry. I was
why
just
are you lying?
I'm not, but you're kind of like
Why?
too
I'm
nasty.
not.
I'll just go over here.
I am just sitting here
I know.
stretching, babe. There's something with you.
Oh, gee.
Watching this a second time, I think I see another hurt that might be happening for him. As my hypothesis goes, for people like this, they sometimes have deep attachment injuries that they went through as they were growing up. And in that moment, he was probably feeling really quite warm that she was sitting close to him, that she was leaning up against him, and that gave him some sense of attachment security. Now, he's not going to let on about that because of that need to uphold that veil of superiority, and also that veil that he doesn't have any vulnerability. But there was probably a part of him that was felt deeply satisfied, like, oh, she's sitting close to me, this feels good. And then when he kind of started to shift and she moved away, that withdrawal of that closeness could have been deeply troubling to him. I don't know that. I would have to investigate that collaboratively with him, but that would be an hypothesis that I would have. And for her to move away like that, which is totally innocent for her to do, he was moving around and she was like, I think I'll move over here. Totally fine for Darcey. But for him, it could have been deeply wounding to his attachment security. And, it's interesting. I didn't catch it the first time, but she said, I'm going to move over here. Why? Well, you're jabbing me. His first response is, why are you lying? That's an interesting knee-jerk response. Why are you lying? Why are you painting me as someone who jabs people in the side with elbows? So I'm guessing there's a percentage of you out there who have had partners like this, where they almost looked for the randomest reasons to accuse you of something. And it's because of these vulnerabilities that they don't trust to express, or they're not even aware of them, because at the age of 2, they had to cut themselves off from that. Anyway.
I'll just go over here.
I am just sitting here stretching, babe. There's something with you.
Oh, geez, you're so rude.
No, that's just the reality.
I just get frustrated with the bickering, us butting heads. That we need to figure that out fast. Because I don't want that around the kids. I don't need to be talked down to. Please stop. I'm a strong woman, and I don't need to be, belittled.
Yeah, you're not being belittled, honey. That's only between your ears, all right?
Wow, it's just awful. It is just awful. Over such a small thing where she's like, oh, you jabbed me, I'm going to move over here, that would trigger such hostility and aggressive, verbal put-downs from him. It's very, very concerning. And typically these things, without therapy, they tend to get worse over time. So hard to watch, because I just see two people that are just so hurt and are so defended. For Darcey to just do this tiny little thing and for this to get so ugly, even her response to it was sort of soft compared to his. She's like, okay, wow. I think we need to work on, she says, I think we need to work on our bickering. And he's like, oh no, it's all you. If we pulled him out of the car and said, okay, tell me what happened. And he's like, you said these things. You said there's something wrong with her. There's something terrible about her. She needs to figure things out. What is it that she needs to figure out? What are you hoping that she could figure out? What did she do wrong? Like, what would he say in that situation? Would he say, well, she's always making an issue out of everything? And you'd think, well, let's look back at the tape, because she was just moved away from you. It wasn't a big deal. You could have just been like, oh, okay, Now, again, it's not like people who have the profile of Jesse do this because of a choice, a rational choice they're making. It's because of these underlying vulnerabilities that they have that are really quite deep. But anyway, it's tough to watch.
I feel like with me, even though we're twins, I kind of let things kind of slide off my shoulder more. She kind of holds on to that. Or I'm just like, whatever, just let it go.
I know what you're saying.
I'm more carefree, not as maybe. I like to let things go. Definitely like to let things go. I know you do, Darce. Yeah, I have to rub it up.
No, you don't rub it up.
No, that's not the case.
Nobody's
that's
perfect.
not the case. That's just something that maybe she needs to work on personally, and so.
So this is interesting. Her twin sister, Stacy, is accusing Darcey of not allowing things to roll off her back, where I would say that Darcey has let a lot roll off her back up until this point. The other thing is, I wonder what the dynamic is between the twins. Is Stacy more in the direction of Jesse, and that's why Darcey fits well with Jesse? These are very loose hypotheses right now because obviously there's not any or hardly any data about Stacy herself. So I don't know. It's just little yellow flags that go off in my mind.
I think it went well. So,
But you gotta be around
very
some
nice,
more.
and we have a nice...
A lot more where that comes from.
I was still talking. Does it really matter to me? No, because I have a relationship with Darcey.
Do you see you and Stacy and Darcey like spending a lot of time together?
Like the three of us?
Yeah, if you've ever moved to Connecticut.
Can you be quiet, please? I'm trying to elaborate on what she asked me. You keep doing it, and Stacy...
Yikes. She just said one or two syllables under her breath, and he's telling her to shut up? Yikes. Have you heard the Till Tuesday song? Ick. Ugh.
That was a good thing from Stacy, by the way, that she made you aware that you were doing that once more. I can't talk with you.
I'm just saying, most of
I
the...
can't talk with you. Thank you so much.
So much contempt, so much stonewalling, so much superiority, so much dominance. Really icky. Really icky. I mean, they edited this footage, so presumably we're not seeing the full interaction, so we can't conclude much from what we're presented here. But if we're just looking at what we're presented here, yikes. Wow. The producer is asking him questions. It's this sort of thing where they're supposed to have some banter. And anytime she opened her mouth, Darcey, he would slap her down verbally, not even in a nice way, just like, shut up, stop talking. Like, why? What was wrong with her? She wasn't even saying anything bad about you. She was just speaking her mind. She wasn't even speaking her mind. She was just chiming in with, you know, a little bit of input. It's wow, just wow. I just want to watch that again because did I not see it correctly? So I want to watch it again here.
I think it went well. So,
But you gotta be around
very
some
nice,
more.
and we have a nice...
A lot more where that comes from.
I was still talking. Does it really matter to me? No, because I have a relationship with Darcey.
Do you see you and Stacy and Darcey like spending a lot of time together?
Like the three of us?
Yeah, if you've ever moved to Connecticut.
Can you be quiet, please? I'm trying to elaborate on what she asked me. You keep doing it, and Stacy...
Yeah, I mean, upon second watching, they clearly chopped that whole thing up. There was probably a lot longer of an interview there that they chopped up. So maybe there was something in there where Darcey is culpable for. I can't imagine what she could have done that would have deserved that response from him. It's really just striking. And I think that's the end of this episode, so I'll end this episode. That is the end of part 6. And I think we just watched episode 4 of season 2. And everyone out there, take a deep breath. Let's detoxify our souls of this negativity. I think I need to do that. Maybe that's why I'm asking everyone to do that. It's just, there's just so much ickiness that I have to sort of shed right now. Take care of yourself and protect yourself from people who treat you badly because you deserve it. You really, really do.